Hello and welcome to the first and brand new Sky Fantasy Football podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. For those who don't know me, my name is Andrew Ferguson. I've played the Sky game on and off for about 5 or 6 years and have a reasonable record with a few top 500 finishes, culminating in a top 100 finish last season. But I am not a patch on my two fellow podcasters, starting with none other than Fantasy Football Hub contributor and former Sky Fantasy Football winner, the legendary Dan Cox. Hi Dan, and how is your season going?
Hello mate, you're right. Yeah, that's all right. It could be better, but I'm good position in the top 1,000. So yeah, it's not too bad. So it's all right, but obviously like to be higher. But yeah, it's going all right. Cheers.
Good. And secondly, again, no real introduction needed for this Fantasy Football Hub contributor and experienced Sky Fantasy manager with 3 top 50 finishes, including a 4th place overall. It's Paul McAnulty. Hi Paul, and how is your season going?
Hi Andrew, thanks a lot for inviting me along to this season so far. Ups and downs. I was sitting just outside the top 100 earlier on in the season around the first overhaul period, but now dropped down a little bit over the Christmas period. Still, we've got a few transfers in the bank, so I'm hoping to make up some ground after the second overhaul.
Oh, you both sound in reasonable shape. I'm struggling a bit this year. I'm currently about 4,000. But I did use 4 transfers on Thursday to jump from 6,000 to 4,000. So I look forward to talking about Liverpool later and things. But great stuff, and great to have you both on. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you guys over the coming weeks. So just a quick note in regards to the format of this podcast. It's going to be quite short as we focus on the specific weekly issues and look ahead to the following game week. So it'll hopefully be around half an hour in total. And we look to get it out on a Sunday evening, ready for the following Monday morning. So with that in mind, the hot topics for Game Week 22 are the moving of the second overhaul, ambiguity on Man of the Match awards. Mane immediately springs to mind there. We will look at the fixtures for the next week, including who are the best transfers to think about and who is the best captain for each game day. And then we will do a differential pick each for those looking to chase their mid-league rivals. So a lot to fit into 30 minutes, but we will try our best. So first, over to you, Dan. If I can ask you to explain the moving of the second overhaul and what it means for Sky managers.
Yeah, so obviously that was penciled in to be where it was, and then the Liverpool-West Ham game had to be rescheduled. So yeah, that's gone in right bang where the overhaul was. So that's a bit of a problem. One that Sky didn't ask for, and just trying the best to deal with. I personally thought they'd do it before the West Ham Liverpool on the Wednesday, the 29th. I thought they'd maybe do it the 23rd to 29th, and that way that would have pretty much stayed as it was up to the overhaul, but they've pushed it back a week now, so it's now the 2nd to the 8th of February. So you've got the fixtures in that weekend plus the Liverpool-West Ham game. So yeah, has thrown up if you'd have been on it New Year's Day, or no, the 2nd, when they announced it, Liverpool had 6 games, they'll play 6 games up until the overhaul, where most teams will have 4 apart from West Ham, Sheffield United. So yeah, that would give you a big, good opportunity to get some extra games out of Liverpool.
So I noticed on Twitter that those Sky managers who were on the ball, a few of them jumped on Liverpool assets. Do you think the Sky managers that didn't jump on the Liverpool assets, Paul, do you think they missed a trick, or do you think that sticking to the original plan was the best play?
I think you could look at it both ways. You could say yes and no. Obviously, Liverpool 1-0, so all of their defensive options, I think they all picked up passing tier as well. So it was minimum 10 points for all defenders, Robertson picking up the assist as well. So you could say they missed a trick there. There is a 3-for-1, which obviously you're getting the 2 extra games as well on Thursday, the 23rd of January. So similarly, if people felt they'd missed out there is an opportunity, again, looking at Gomez, and perhaps as he nailed on to play beside Van Dijk, if budget couldn't have stretched for one of the more expensive defenders. So there is still opportunity to get on that if that's what people were waiting to do, just with a little bit more information.
I noticed, Dan, that in your second team, you ended up with 7 Liverpool players, which obviously, I imagine that would give you a bit of a jump. What about your first team? And wishing now that you did the same in your first team?
I've still got 4 Liverpool players in my first team. That was basically the second team. That was about 6,000th or something. I'd used a couple more transfers than I wanted to. So that was just a bit of I don't really, this team's not going to win it, so let's have a bit of fun with it. So I already had I think I already had 3 Liverpool players. So I thought, yeah, well, I'll make 4 transfers and I can get 7 in. And if Liverpool keep, 6 clean sheets till the overhaul, I can probably get this to top 500 or so. And even that first night, I went from 6,000 up to 2,000. Wow. So, a few more of that. But like Paul said, if you missed out on that, Liverpool still got a good 3 for 1, is it, from the 23rd? So, and arguably easier game. So, I think Liverpool got United and Spurs next, although they ain't what they used to be, are they? So, but, I've gone for it for the tougher games, but you could just jump in and still get the extra games with easier games. So stick to your plan if you weren't on that, and it should still be golden.
There was an interesting stat I seen on Twitter about Liverpool the other day. It was all to do with Van Dijk's defensive partnerships. So since the start of last season, when Van Dijk played with Lovren, Liverpool concede on average 0.9 goals per game, with Matip 0.7. But when he plays with Gomez, which has been 15 games now, they only concede 0.3 as well. I don't know if that correlates, if people again are looking to get a differential, then Gomez might be worth going for. I think he's 9.2, which is a considerable amount cheaper than Alexander-Arnold. I think is the second cheapest at 9.9.
So is Gomez nailed on then, do we think?
It's tough. I think Matip and Lovren are sort of due back soon, aren't they? But I think there will be a bit of rotation. He might miss a game here or there or something. But I'm hoping he'll play, just out of these 6 games, I'm hoping he'll play 4 of them. That would be a dream.
I noticed he played this afternoon in the FA Cup, which is probably not a good sign, since I think nearly every other player was like a second string player, but I suppose it remains to be seen. Have we got anything else to mention and about the overhaul? Any kind of further implications or anything like that to think about?
No, I don't think so. I've planned up to the overhaul, and when they announced that it was going to be later than what it was originally planned, he just takes in the extra weekend, and I had a bit of time. I was back at work that day anyway, so I had a bit of time on my hands, so I quickly just checked my plan was still in place. But no, I don't think so personally. I think it's fine, really. But yeah, just check your days for captains and any good moves you can make. But I can't see anything that particularly stands out, really. Don't know if Paul does.
No, pretty much the same. After I made 2 moves to get Liverpool defenders in the week past, and I think that's, barring any injuries, I think that's me until the overhaul as well. So
I suppose the only thing I would mention around is last year, I believe the overhaul was after about FPL week. I think it was 27 or 28, and it fell. I think it was around the 10th of February. We've all been planning up until now on the premise that we would have an earlier overhaul. So the only thing I could maybe think about is when we were thinking about the amount of transfers we would want left, knowing there's the extra game week, but also the extra 2 games for Liverpool, maybe there's just a slight implication on how many transfers we think we need left at the overhaul. So, if we were thinking maybe 15, ideally we'd like that 15 or 16, then potentially, 12, 13, 14, maybe a kind of reasonable amount. I'm currently on 12 because I smashed into Liverpool, a bit of a shit or bust sort of thing on Thursday. I thought, if I'm going to make inroads, I need to take some risks. So that kind of worked on Thursday. And like yourself, Dan, I'm hoping now that Liverpool and Leicester go on a massive defensive streak up to the overhaul. But that's the only other real implication I can see, apart from the extra West Ham game, which I suppose is against Liverpool, so it's not very attractive, but it does potentially make a couple of West Ham players interesting if we haven't got a captain for this coming Friday. It was the only other thing I thought about as well. So on to the second topic then, and this was around ambiguity of Man of the Match awards. So on Thursday, Mane had Man of the Match awarded to him, even though anyone who watched the game and anyone who understands football probably would have given it to about 4 or 5 other players ahead of them. Paul, what are your thoughts on this, and what can Sky do to improve this going forward?
Yeah, it's a bit of a bone of contention on the Sky Sports Fantasy Twitter community. Week past, I had Salah as captain as well, so lost a march on those that had captained Mane. I think this has been an issue with Sky Fantasy Football for a while. Obviously, on the televised games where Alan Smith or Gary Neville or whoever the commentator is that's picking Man of the Match, around about I guess 95% of the time, whoever they pick, that's kind of who gets it in the match report, and then there's kind of no grumblings. I know Alan Smith kind of favours attackers, having been one in his career as well. But there's no real issues from anyone from that. I think for games like this where they're non-televised, my interpretation of what happens is that someone at the Sky Fantasy Football headquarters or wherever whoever it is that actually picks it from the match reports will not watch the game and will look at the score, 2-0 Liverpool win, Salah, Mane with the goals, and then have a look at the ownership. Mane's ownership sits quite high, therefore making an easy selection like that. And we've seen it on numerous occasions before, and I personally think that's roughly how these selections are made, which I can understand it. The thing is, it takes away a bit from the differential. Like Salah's ownership's a lot less. That was the reason for me going from as well, having had a reasonably bad month in December. I was looking to pick a proven FPL, a proven Premier League player as a differential, but I can't see it. I didn't grumble too much about it. These things happen, and I guess they average out over time as well. But that's how I believe it's picked. I know that the point awards was reduced from 5 points to 3 points at the start of the season. I personally wouldn't be against them removing it completely, but I don't know that there is a perfect answer to it. I know people complain at FPL based on the bonus points from Opta. If there's an attacking fullback on a losing team, gets the 3 bonus points. I know that's a complaint there as well. So for me, it would either be stick with what it is and accept that that's the way it is, or just remove it completely.
Yeah, but I think the difference with FPL, at least it's reasonably
objective.
Exactly, it's reasonably objective. It's based on stats and actual things that happen on the pitch, rather than, as you've said, someone guessing from a result. Dan, have you got any more thoughts on this at all?
Pretty much the same, really. Like that, it used to be 5 points, and I know they reduced it to 3 because people were moaning. Do you know what I mean? If there's a dodgy, they reckon, so dodgy was a thing, and so they've made it only 3 points, so it's not a bigger factor. But I had Salah on Wednesday. Do you know what I mean? So for Mane to get it, it's like you're joking. Like that's 6 points I've been robbed of. Like everyone who's got Mane, and you just lose captains him. You think like what? But do you know what I mean? Just take it on the chin. Like I do get tired of people like conspiracy and this, that, and the other. If anything, it's just a bit of lazy journalism. Like I say, like just Mane scored. He scored. He's been doing all right this season. He can be man of the match. I know the Sun, they used to have reporter ratings that were just terrible, weren't they? And I don't know, if Chelsea won 1-0, Terry would be star man, or Lampard. It would always be the same player. So that's why they brought who scored him. And I know there's some things about them, like complaints sort of thing, but I just don't, it's always going to be, someone's going to moan about it. Like, if it goes your way, then great. If it doesn't, just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? It's just one of those things. Yeah, you could scrap it all together, but I don't know. Like TFF, I know they used to have it and then they don't have it, but it adds a bit more excitement. Like, I did think, yes, get rid of it, but then someone said, like, well, they kind of then quite like the sort of, like, if you're watching a game, the last 5 minutes, and someone gives the man a match, you're like, yes, there's some more points in, like, so it's a bit more excitement. But a
couple of seasons ago, I was sitting with Alfie Mawson when he played for Fulham. He was quite cheap in the game, and his ownership was pretty high. And I think they were away at West Ham. Maybe I can't remember if it was at West Ham or at Fulham. And West Ham scored in the 94th or 95th minute for a 1-0 victory. And then when the match report came through, Alfie Mawson got man of the match. Now, I don't know if that was somebody there who's just looked at the scores when 90 minutes gone. He was a high percentage pick as well. I think I looked afterwards, and he was the highest percent owned player that was on the field that day. So that was kind of where some of my conspiracy or thoughts, perhaps, where it comes from is.
I don't know if any of you will remember, I've been playing Dream Team for a long time when it used to be reporters, and I think the worst one I've ever seen, Starman, they gave it to Teddy Sheringham, because I don't think he even scored, but that was his birthday, and they basically gave him like man of the match because that was his birthday or something. You're like, there's a lot of money at stake here. Like, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? And so we're big. Everyone could see that Mane wasn't man of the match the other day. Like, I think if you've gone through, I think someone didn't they? They listed all the sort of reports or whatever up for it, and Sky were the only ones who'd given man of the match, and everyone else was Henderson or Salah, or like you said, there was 4 or 5 other players that could have got it over him. But just that is what it is. Just get on with it, really.
Yeah, I think the only points that I would make is that if all the games were all the same, then we wouldn't have the kind of multitude of games we have. I suppose, you know, if you took the best bits of FPL,
Yep.
you know, and got rid of the worst ones, the best from Sky got rid of them, you know, and the same in Dream Team, the same in TFF. You'd only have one game anyway. So I do think each game having its own nuances, no matter how annoying, is quite important. But I would also say that fantasy football now is big business, and there's a lot of cash attached to a lot of players, both in terms of the overall winner, you know, on Sky wins 50,000, the overall winner on Dream Team wins 100,000. I plug hundreds of pounds in every, you know, year in mini leagues, as I'm sure a lot of people plug in hundreds or thousands of pounds. And these 6 points for Mane over Salah could be the difference between hundreds or even thousands of pounds at the end of the season. So I just think, you know, there's no right answer, but I do agree with you, Dan, that with these things, it is what it is, really. If we didn't have these nuances, then we wouldn't have all the games. It's just the consistency. I think that's all that people want, is consistency. And, you know, anyone could see it wasn't Mane. And so if anyone from Sky are listening, please, just a bit of consistency is all we want, I think, guys. I think that's fair to say, probably, is it?
Yep.
Okay, so looking at the fixtures next week then, we've got Sheffield United, West Ham on this coming Friday, the 10th of January. So we've got 8 games then on Saturday, and then we've got the 2 games on this Sunday. In terms of transfers first, are any of you planning any transfers this weekend, or are we all burnt out and just trying to cling on by our fingernails until the overhaul? Dan, have you got any transfers planned at all this weekend, or anything that's catching your eye at all?
No, nothing at all, mate. Both teams are locked down now till Overhaul, so unless bar an injury. But yeah, no, that's me done now.
Are there any players at all which, you know, if you had a few spare transfers floating around, that you would be interested in? So is there anyone that for the next kind of 3 or 4 games you're thinking, oh God, I'm scared of this guy, I wish I could bring him in?
Anyone who Heskebo's got really is on my sort of radar, because anyone he brings in is just scoring goals or man of the match every game sort of thing. So, and I think the couple I've looked at his team, and like the 2 I think for him this weekend that I haven't got that I'm worried about is Rashford and Sterling. I think they're he's got them, so they're bound to both score this weekend.
And how about yourself, Paul? Anything plans or anyone you're scared of this weekend?
When I made the Liverpool double defence transfer in, I made sure that I'd covered all the captaincies up until the overhaul with people I was taking out. So I've got Sheffield United defender on Friday night. But if I didn't have any, I wouldn't be looking to bring someone in for that game, I don't think. I no longer own Rashford, but we spoke before we went on live about how anytime I own a Manchester United asset, they always do terrible when they're in my team. So Q Rashford double at the weekend, I think, against Norwich. I like playing differentials when I mentioned earlier on, when it's a proven Premier League player that's kind of gone under the radar. And I know that Aguero's coming back from injury. If I was looking to take a punt, I would maybe and I was going to do a transfer, maybe bringing him in on Sunday. But you don't get to see the lineups, I guess, because it's a 4:30 kickoff. So yeah, that's right. Kind of would rule that out for me as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think just kind of observations for transfers, there's nothing really which stands out. I think the only thing I can note on the Saturday is that in terms of, you know, there's some nice home fixtures for Chelsea are playing Burnley. So, you know, there's like Abraham and Mount and players like that. Everton are home to Brighton. So there's a bit of love at the moment for Richarlison, and Calvert-Lewin's another one, mainly in FPL, you know, who's we're having a look at that. I noticed that Everton have got some nice fixtures until the overhaul. So potentially, if you're looking for one there, I believe he's 0% owned in the top 1K. So if he bangs for the next month, then maybe there's a chance to move forward. Leicester are home to Southampton, so obviously, you know, players like Vardy and Maddison and all the defenders. United are home to Norwich, so players like Rashford and Martial. So yeah, there's a lot of home games on Saturday for some highly owned players. So I am expecting quite a high scoring day on Saturday. So in terms of captains then, so for the Friday, Sheffield United West Ham, Dan, who do we think is the best captain for that game?
I've got Henderson, so I'm hoping that he is, but I would have preferred it if Pellegrini had still been at West Ham, to be honest.
Yeah,
but Sheffield United at home, I'm hopeful of a clean sheet, or, you know, 0-0 will do. So Yeah, Henderson Friday night. But again, he's one I've had in for a while to cover captaincy, so I wouldn't look to bring anyone in if I didn't have anyone already. I'd just go without. But I've had him in for a while with this game in mind, so Henderson on Friday for me.
Paul, you said the same, that if you didn't have anyone, you maybe wouldn't waste a transfer. That's interesting. So who's your captain for Friday?
Baldock from Sheffield United.
He's been smashing it, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think most people that'll have a captain lined up already, it'll be a Sheffield United defender or goalkeeper.
Yeah, I don't have one myself, so I was a bit slow to jump on the Sheffield United defence. So I've got a bit of a decision I need to make, because I've got Mount, but when we move on in a minute to the differentials, I've got a player I'm thinking about, but we'll move on to that in a second. So on the Saturday then, we just mentioned there's a lot of nice home games. Who are your captains, guys, and who are the ones you wish you had? Firstly, Dan.
So I'll be on Vardy because Rodgers, who I'll trust 100%, says he's been fine, like he did at Newcastle. So I'll be on Vardy. So I'm not bitter about that. So Vardy, although I've been busy with the kids at the weekend. Is it the Carabao Cup? Is that this midweek, or do Leicester play midweek, or is it? Yeah. So unless he gets injured or I just don't know. God, that's a bit of a worry actually. Do you know what I mean? I think he would play, wouldn't he? But yeah. Anyway, Vardy for Saturday, unless anything happens Wednesday or he says beforehand he's not playing.
And do you think he's the best one if you didn't own him?
Yeah. Well, that's another shame because they're Southampton, but they've been all right recently, haven't they?
They have. Yeah.
He scored a hat-trick last time, so you're thinking, I'll have Vardy again, but I don't know. He needs to do something. He's had a few quiet weeks, hasn't he? So I could do with Vardy, but I don't know. Like I said, Rashford against Norwich. Yeah, like Abraham, but I think Abraham always sort of fails to deliver for me. So I think the only if I could pick anyone, I probably would have Rashford. Close second would be Vardy.
And how about yourself, Paul?
Yeah, I don't have. I transferred Rashford out last week, so I'll be on Vardy as well.
I thought I had Rashford, but I transferred him out as well, so I think I'm going to be stuck on Vardy as well, though I do think Rashford is a good shout. I would just say that Norwich, their defence has improved recently, same as the Saints, so I think Vardy's the best shout there. The only thing is he'd be quite highly owned and highly captained, but that's just what it is. And moving on to the Sunday then, so we've got Bournemouth against Watford, and then we've got Villa Man City. Firstly, come to Paul then. So Paul, who's your captain for Sunday?
Kevin De Bruyne will be my captain Sunday. I think that within the top 1,000, there must be at least 90% of people will be captain De Bruyne, I think.
Agree. And do you think he's the best pick?
I think he's the most assured for start for City. If you knew who was going to start out of Jesus and Aguero, I think and Sterling as well, I guess, then there's an argument for captain in one of those three. But yeah, based on assurance of starts, then it would be KDB for me.
So Sterling was rested this weekend in the FA Cup. Obviously, they have got Man United midweek in the Carabao Cup. I think he'll play if he was fit, if he was guaranteed to play. Would you still pick Sterling or De Bruyne?
Yeah, if he was guaranteed to play and I owned Sterling, I would be tempted to captain Sterling. I don't know if it's more it would depend on what I was looking to achieve, whether I was trying to gain ground or maintain a position. If I was trying to maintain a position, I would go KDB for safety as well, just to cover other people. Okay,
and how about yourself, Dan?
Yeah, I'll be on De Bruyne because he's the only player I got that day. So yeah, I'll be on De Bruyne. But like we said before, Sterling, he's only in 10% of the top 1,000. So Hescobo's going to have a treat on Sunday when he scores. But no, I think he'd be a good differential. 10% owned in the top 100, top 1,000. Yeah. He'd be good. But I just don't know what KDB. Well, I don't know. He didn't do much. He was a bit deeper when he last game, and
very deep.
I don't know. And before that, it was just amazing when he the game's massive haul. Didn't he? The game before that, so De Bruyne.
And I'm the same. I'm on De Bruyne. He was my vice in FPL last weekend with my captain being Vardy. So I watched the game and I watched De Bruyne not far off play at centre back. But I do think they were rotating, and I do think he'll be back playing more advanced this weekend. And I thoroughly expect him to get a haul away to Villa as well, because Villa's defence are just in dire straits. And I see that Heaton's out for the season now as well, so they're in they're in trouble. Okay, so lastly then, for those Sky managers then who are struggling to make any ground, do we have a differential pick maybe? So a bit of a risky one that potentially could help them climb the ranks. Paul, can I come to you first?
Yeah, you stole my Calvert-Lewin one and reeled off his stats earlier on as well. So I did have one as backup, and he scored at the weekend. So he's been on a poor run recently, but he does play on Sunday this week, so it would allow you to transfer someone out that plays on the Saturday. So I was looking at Callum Wilson. He's 9.9, selected 0% in the top 1,000, 4% overall. I think he could be a nice differential, especially if you want to move away from KDB for the captaincy. The next four's Watford, Norwich, Brighton, Villa. Good fixtures on paper as well.
Yeah, I looked at him as well earlier. He was in my list as well, along with Calvert-Lewin. So apologies for that, Paul. And how about yourself, Dan? Have you got anyone for us?
Not really. No one major. Like I know we spoke beforehand, like about Rashford. Can't forget the exact stats, but was it he's in 44% of the top 1,000 teams? So that's still all right. Do you know what I mean? Or Sterling, like I said, Sterling for Sunday only in 10% of the top 1,000. Like that's quite a good little differential, really. Like he could go on a bit of a run now. So yeah, and no one else really takes my fancy, to be honest. I'd just hold the transfers now. If you are struggling, just hold the transfers because I don't know if you'll cover the remaining transfers averages, but a lot of teams have used a lot of transfers. So if you just keep to your plan, don't panic. I think you're going to start climbing soon anyway as the teams all start to run out of transfers above you.
Yeah. So just to touch then on Calvert-Lewin. So he's 8.8 million. He's less than 1% owned overall and 0% owned in the top 1K. And his next four are Brighton, West Ham, Newcastle and Watford. So potentially, if you're really, really struggling, just looking for anyone to try and make a few jumps, then potentially he's one. The one I'm actually looking at, and there's a reason for this, and please don't laugh, guys, is Mark Noble at 7.8 million. So I don't have a captain for Friday. So he obviously played on the weekend. He scored a couple. West Ham have got that new manager bounce. They've also got that extra game, albeit against Liverpool. He's on pens and he's on form. And in terms of his ownership, he's 0.4% owned in the top 1K. So I have got Mount, who I've had in since the first overhaul, and I've just had him in because his fixtures have been good for a long time, and every week I just think, this is the week he scores a brace and gets man of the match, and every single week he either gets 2 or 4 points. So I'm very, very tempted to go from Mount to Noble on Friday, and the only reason is that the captaincy game, the extra game against Liverpool, he may get a penalty, he probably won't, but he might get something. And just the fact, because of his ownership, I just think, if he does manage to score a couple of goals in that time, there won't be many who have him as a chance to move up a bit. But that's my low ownership tip for the next few weeks. And that's it from us then. So we will be back next week. So we'll be back every week now, every Sunday, looking at the games for the next weekend and looking at the key talking points of the week. Dan, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you for your expert insight. Where can we find you on Twitter and anywhere else?
Yeah, so Twitter, Dan Cox 82. I'm on there every day. And yeah, got some articles on the Hub as well, Fantasy Football Hub. So Twitter, the main place, and then Fantasy Football Hub.
Cool, thank you, Dan. And how about yourself, Paul?
Paul McAnulty 1 on Twitter. I guess if you're looking for the spelling, that will be on the tweet that goes out from the Hub. So, but yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I'm happy to answer anything on Twitter as well.
Cool, thank you, Paul. And my Twitter handle is @Fergie222. So this podcast will be on the new Fantasy Football Hub Sky and TFF YouTube channel, which we created today, and also available in all major podcast libraries, including iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. I'll post all the URLs out on Twitter, or you can search for Sky Fantasy Football Podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. For Apple Podcasts and Spotify, they may be a little bit later this week as new podcasts need to be verified. If you like what you hear, please like, share, subscribe, retweet. It all helps us get the word out and make sure you don't miss anything. All comments and feedback to any of us are very welcome. Our Twitter handle is @FFH_HQ, and our Sky Twitter handle is @FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. We did hold our retweet competition this week for the launch of the podcast, with the random winner being Mark Youngs @Youngs92 on Twitter. So many congratulations, Mark. You win a year's free Fantasy Football Hub membership which will give you access to everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, team reveals, and much, much more, which can be used for both Sky and FPL. So well done, Mark. Send me a DM and we will sort out your free membership. Also on our website, fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, specifically for Sky, Dan, as he mentioned, reveals his transfers, captains, and general thoughts. Usually on a Thursday, Dan, is it Thursday or Friday?
Friday, 1 o'clock.
Okay, so there we go, Friday, 1 o'clock. While Paul writes a brilliant weekly article on the 5 burning questions of the week, both essential reads if you are a serious Sky player. I also write my weekly format diary article, which includes my Sky team transfers, captains, and progress. So we'll be back next week. In the meantime, we hope you have a great Sky Game Week 22, and we bid you thank you and good night. Good night.